Everyone.
Good morning.
So I am sorry we can't see that, but do look at it. I saw it some time ago, and I keep looking at it, and it's just kind of amazing. And the visual part of it is very amazing. But so there's going to be like pretty much three parts to what I'm going to do today. And one is to kind of look at what the major what's the problem, and then looking at solutions from a spiritual aspect, looking at different traditions, and from a political or a social position, and then personal, what can we, personally, how do we approach this? And so I know that this isn't, I feel like I'm kind of speaking to the choir here, but I have, obviously, like you, we are kind of at this point in time, as I see it, as a therapist, as I see people, I would say that without a lot of the external distractions or stimulation or the sensory input, we're not getting it. What's happening is that we're all going deeper and deeper into our own unconscious, which can be kind of difficult at times, but it also is an opportunity to kind of look more at who we are, develop who we are, see people doing some kind of amazing work in terms of their personal issues, but also just in terms of their spiritual growth, their personal growth, their growth in terms of many things in their lives. So I see, I think there is that belief, and I have that, I'm sure you do too, that difficulties and challenges are really great opportunities for us to change and grow and become better people. But of course, along the way, we don't want to get mired in despair and hopelessness or anger or whatever else we can get mired in. And that's very easy to do, isn't it? So as we, actually the video, which you're going to see maybe later, hopefully have an opportunity, in the video that they are playing while they're singing March, and they're saying, march, march to my own drum, march, march to my own drum. Hey, hey, I'm an army of one. Oh, I'm an army of one. And they talk about various issues. And then in the video, I'm just going to kind of go over it, and I don't want to spend too much time. But what we know, obviously, is that COVID has put the world and our country and our locality here under a lot of duress. And it also, as we all know, has kind of basically exacerbated the fault lines in our culture and in our society. And so they're not pretty. It's not pretty. And as a therapist, and certainly as you know, as people of faith, we take this seriously. So I just want to, some of the problems are, we all know, and in the idea of social justice, and I've written an article about this some months ago, that racism and bias and prejudice, all the isms, racism, sexism, classism, we can't forget that, because we have poverty, which is huge, homophobia, we have all these issues that are exacerbated by this other issue that is kind of put on top of all of us, right? And so basically, as we look at what, the problems are, I'm going to just for your own info, there was an article from the New York Times called Racism's Hidden Toll. It was in the New York Times, August. And he says, basically, it's talking about one of the problems, of course, we talk about systemic racism, but let's just say, what does that mean specifically? And I'm going to read this. This is data that's nationwide. Black people were 3 times more likely than white people to contract the coronavirus, 6 times more likely to be hospitalized as a result, and twice as likely to die of COVID-19. And that's true for Native Americans. It's less true, but also truer for Hispanic people. And so, and of course, anyone with predisposing conditions in our elderly population. So it says basically, David Ansel, who directs community health equity at Rush University Medical Center in Chicago, says, an epidemic shows in a short period of time what's been going on for hundreds of years. And this was I think a statement that struck me. If Black people had died at the same age-adjusted rate as white people in 2018, they would have avoided 65,000 premature excessive deaths, the equivalent of 3 coach buses filled with Black people crashing and killing them all every day of the year. So, you know, we could talk about the Native American communities. I've had the privilege of studying with a Native American woman who is now deceased. When I was doing my PhD, I went to visit a Native American Northern Cheyenne reservation, and I will tell you, the infrastructure, it's miserable. It's a miserable thing if we look at what's happening to Native American peoples, poor people. So actually, we know that poverty, if you've written, Sarah, you've heard of Sarah Smarsh's book, Heartland, and then now Nicholas Kristof, who writes for the New York Times, has also written a book about his experiences, and I see some of you nodding. He wrote about his experiences growing up as a very poor person in Oregon, and he, you know, talks about the fact that pretty much all of his peers are either dead, in prison, or drug addicted. And he escaped. Sarah Smarsh escaped, you could say, from poverty. But the fact is that she's an outspoken person. They both are. She writes, he writes. She wrote her book. So, but the problem that we're all facing with all these things, we know in the video, it shows a lot of the things about women and women's rights. And we know that's 100th anniversary of women's voting rights. But we also know that Black women didn't get voting rights. We know that Chinese Americans did not have voting rights for a long time because of the Chinese Exclusion Act. So we know that many people have been excluded from what we call this equality of our democratic country for many, many years and many, many decades. We're still kind of operating under the burden of that historical reality. It's here. I've lived in Kansas City. I was born and raised here. I'm very, very well aware of the color line and where people live and where they don't, and how we have excluded people from living in particular neighborhoods. And we have absolutely created, and I definitely saw this in the reservations, we have created an underclass. And then, unfortunately, they get blamed by the society as being lazy or bad, or why aren't they doing this and that sort of thing. So I think I happen, as you know, to be a gay person. I'm also a Buddhist, and I'm a woman, so I guess I'm in 3 minorities. I'm old now too, so what the heck? Aren't we all? I'm actually about to celebrate my 79th birthday in a couple of weeks, so I'm so grateful for being as healthy as I am and to have the privileges that I do have. I don't take them for granted. Not for a minute do I take them for granted. And I feel like the onus is on me and you, that we have a mission to help others, okay? So I think that as we're looking at the overview of what's going on, we do see a lot of issues, right? And it can be very depressing. But I think that what's really important is for us to find ways to feel hope. So one of the things that struck me as I was actually writing an article some time ago, looking at the idea of how prejudice and biases create bad mental health, right? That as I think you know, I was born and raised Catholic. I was a nun for 11 years, but I left that tradition and I've been a Buddhist for about 40 years. But in the Catholic tradition, one of the things that I see that I think has been very interesting, and some of you may have heard of it, it's called liberation theology. Have any of you ever heard of that? Well, in the 60s, yeah, okay, so in the 60s and 70s, a lot of, particularly the people that were working in Central and South America, were saying, hey, look, we're teaching the spiritual tradition to people and they're poor. They're living under political oppression. They have no opportunity. So what am I doing talking to them about these transcendent ideas of spirituality? And so the idea of liberation theology is going from the transcendent view of spirituality to what we might call immanence. So we're talking about the idea of, instead of a transcendent God or the otherworldly God, that we're talking about God or the energy as you're talking about the Spirit of Christ as to be at work in the everyday among people, among the poor and oppressed. So it's really changing the thing that it's not about leaving the world. It's about being in the world as it is, right? And that is the spiritual path more than let's just think about God out there, right? And I know that in your, you also, I think, embrace that. Because if we think about it, and it's also a Buddhist, if you think about Buddhism, that each person is a Buddha, and we don't, believe in the absolute connection of the oneness of body and mind, and the oneness of self and the environment. So, as your church of oneness, it's like if everything is connected, then there isn't if anybody's hurting any place or there's problems anywhere, then I'm a part of it. If there's hope anywhere, I'm a part of it. But here's the part that I think is really important for us to remember, that when we're connected to the oneness of all things, we're also connected to the oneness of all help, all power, right? That we're always connected. In Buddhism, there's a concept of what we call the 10 worlds, from the lower worlds of hell, anger, animality, and anger, to the world of Buddhahood. But they're not separate. We talk about the fact that the 10 worlds are existing simultaneously. In other words, Buddhahood, or you call it the oneness, the connection with the Christ principle, that is all present, as is the pain, as is the suffering, as is everything else. So we always have, right, that power, that energy that we can connect with. We're never separate from it in any given moment, right? So as you believe too, each person's thoughts, words, actions affects everyone, right? And I'm going to talk more about that in a little bit. But I thought that it's interesting to me, like I said, that if you look at like in the liberation theology, they talk about the fact in the New Testament, it says, the Spirit of God has anointed me to proclaim liberty to captives, and that we're called to denounce injustices when we see them. And the Buddhist, it's pretty much a similar kind of thing, is that we're asked to really think about how our lives affect everyone else's, right? So I think it's really important to think about some of these, if you will, the things that came before us, right? And so, and if anybody has anything to say, that's fine. You can unmute yourself and comment on whatever you'd like to. So I think, again, if you look at your own tradition, if you look at the other spiritual traditions, I look at my tradition of early on Catholicism, and there's much that the church has done poorly, and I'm not a Catholic any longer, but I don't have those beliefs. But Buddhism hasn't always done, all religious traditions haven't always done the right thing, but they've given us the right ideas and the right path if we just decide to stay on it, right? And you all have, formed your community, and I think it's important. I also am in kind of a renegade Buddhist community that was formed from those of us that were kind of tired of the a more authoritarian, less empathic view of the leadership. So I think we all have to make choices, don't we, about how we're going to live our lives and how we can embrace how we see that approaching social justice or injustice, right, is part of our spiritual path. It's part of our mission. It's part of who we are, right? And so it seems to me that tells me that we can make a difference. So I want to talk for just a little minute too about what I saw this the other day. Someone had posted, and I thought it was good. Instead of the word equality, they were using the word equity, because we aren't really equal, are we? We're all kind of different and unique. But equity, I thought this was very interesting. Taking one's unique needs and challenges into consideration. So equity is a part of looking. If I look at someone who has severe mental illness, I don't expect the same thing from them that I may expect from myself. Not to say I don't have issues, but I don't have severe mental illness. But those who do have chronic mental illness, and believe me, I see some of the effects of that on them, on their families. It's very, very, it's a huge issue for them and for their families and for society. So what? We think, so if they don't get disability, if they don't have a place to live, if they don't get treatment, how are they ever going to have any kind of a quality of life, right? Or if someone has, is on the spectrum and autism, or if someone comes into, is very, very poor through no fault of their own. People are born into poverty. Children are born into poverty every single day. Is it their fault? Probably not. And their parents who maybe sometimes many of them working 2 and 3 jobs and still not able to pay their bills. So is that their fault? So if we're looking at one's unique needs and challenges, that's a different whole thing entirely, isn't it? So the next thing is that they have equal access and opportunity. Isn't that interesting? So as women, as people of color, is there equal opportunity and access? Even when we look at things like voting, or we look at things like even people that are food insecure, or people that have the, right now we've got a lot of kids at home who don't have internet, who don't have parents who have the education or the time to help them learn. And so now we have, and there's another article that I read about the coronavirus generation, talking about how children who are from poorer families are going to suffer the most from this. I know a lot of people who have kids who maybe they work at home, they have the opportunity to hire people to help their kids, or they have opportunities for them to one parent to take care of helping the children. They have little pods they're working on. They have and they realize they have privilege to do that. And but what about the kids who don't have that? Through no fault of their own. Their mom or their dad or the single mom is out working, probably at some place where she's in danger, right? As a front care health worker or cleaning someone's home or whatever might, out there, probably facing more stuff than I have to face, right? So I think we need to think about that in terms of that equal access and opportunity, okay? And the other part was, the last part is removing systemic barriers that have resulted in disparate treatment. And I think even as a female of my age, and some of you are as old as I am at least, and it's like, my mother was born before women had the vote. And I'm very appreciative of the fact that, they went through 2 world wars and a Great Depression, and I don't have, other things, many things that my parents went through. But as a female, what women did, and they've had some very, very good programs on recently about the history of voting rights. And they literally put their life on the line. Absolutely put their life on the line. It took almost 100 years for women even to get the 19th Amendment, which even then did not really guarantee that all women could vote. So I think this equity, what do you think of that? You think it's just, to me, that's a better way to look at it, right? So, and I think that when we're thinking about justice, we're thinking about this equity. So let's look at the solutions. So, personally, I think that we can think about, one, educating ourselves. Now, when I do think, I'm going to say, put a little thing in there. It's important for us to be educated about things, but we don't want to overload ourselves to the point where we just feel drowned. But I will say that I just saw this today, actually. James Baldwin said, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed that is not faced. So I think facing difficulties, but I think we have to look at it objectively, creatively, and saying, what can I do? What can you do? What can I do? I did not go join into the protests. I felt that it was not safe with COVID for me at my age. And I was also having a knee problem, and I knew I couldn't stand very long. But I do know some people that did participate and are participating. And I do support it, absolutely 100% support that. But I think we all have to decide how much, that we can't take it on. But I do think it's important. And I do read two people that I like a lot are David Christoph listen to me, Nicholas Christoph and David Brooks. And David Brooks has been, I don't know if you're aware of the Aspen Institute, but the Aspen Institute actually is it's very hopeful. If you go to Aspen Institute, just go to their website. David Brooks is a part of this program. He's a director, part of this program. But it really is really assisting local groups who are helping people in their communities, okay? And I think that's very positive. And there's some really amazing things happening around this country with programs like the Aspen Institute, okay? And I find that really helpful, okay, to know that. So, as I said, we think about the actions that we can take. And some of us can volunteer. Actually, one of my volunteer things I can't do because we used to go to the prison once a month in Topeka, and we can't go now. And they have no Zoom thing or anything like that going on. And as a volunteer, we cannot have connections with the women. The people that visit them can have connections, but we can't talk to them or send them emails or anything. So that I feel really bad about that. So I have to think about other ways. We also can, if some of us have financial resources, I've been very sure, thinking about giving money to harvesters, making sure, the World Food Kitchen that feeds millions of people around this country, looking at people that are helping others and being wiser about who I might donate to. And also, of course, we know, and that was one of the main themes also of the March video, is vote, 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 vote. And don't think that your vote doesn't count. And if nothing else, I would just say that the energy that you put forth, and we'll go into that now too, I said, if you have to pick what you can do. But I would say, even if you were a quadriplegic laying in your bed, you could change the world. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things that you and I can do if we can't, maybe, like I said, maybe you don't feel like you can go out and be in a march. I just didn't feel at the time that it was too safe to do so. And I didn't do that, but I certainly am supportive. And right now my volunteer work is on hold. Some of yours might be also. So what can we do? What are some of the things we can do? So we think about, being that army of one. So let me talk a little bit. So this is one of my kind of favorite topics. I tell people, and as a female, I tell women, you can't help anybody else if you don't help yourself. I said, I have a PhD, and here's what I've learned. If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. All right? So we know that if you are helping others, and you are a caretaker, or a parent, or a friend, or a spouse, or a neighbor, or whatever, that you must take care of yourself. You cannot help anyone if you are not physically, mentally, spiritually as healthy as you could be. Okay? So I'm going to talk over some of the things. A lot of this but it's like just to remind us, right? To remind us. So Stephen Alardi is a professor at KU, and he wrote a book called The Depression Cure. And it's not like rocket science, but it's something we all need to pay attention. And he talks about 6 things that we need to do to deal with depression, which if any of us aren't depressed now, we're not listening. So we got to deal with it. We've got to deal with this inundation of needs, right? And you're people of empathy, you're people who care. but we must absolutely find ways, not necessarily to take it on, but to find ways to keep ourselves healthy and grounded so that we can act in whatever capacity we have. So one is, there's simple things. One, are you getting enough sleep? Okay. And I will tell you that as a therapist, one of the questions I ask people, are you getting enough sleep? And most people don't. And right now, when our schedules and our systems are kind of dysregulated, it's extremely important for you to making sure that you're getting enough sleep. And if you need to take a supplement, a few people I know might need to take a drug, do what you need to do to get a good night's sleep, restful sleep. Okay, so please look at that. The other thing that goes with that, of course, is exercising. Even if it's, walking, or we walk our dogs. Our dogs take us on a walk every day, several times a day. I've been out in the yard a lot, and I don't know what I'm going to do in the winter, but I on the days when I'm not working, and if I'll get up earlier, a little bit earlier, not too early, and work for several hours in the yard until it gets kind of hot. And my yards never look so good. I've got the grass and the cracks going. I've got so many things that I've never even paid attention to, but it's good for my mental health, and physically it's good for me. Okay, so we all can find things that within our physical capacity we can do, right? So I think that's important, is some kind of exercise. The other thing, which you may not know about, and some of you may, is getting enough sunlight. And as winter is approaching, what I would tell you is, if you can't get outside, get a full spectrum light. They're not that expensive. And I would say sit in front. You can order them online. They're not that expensive. You don't need to sit in front 20, 30 minutes a day. People that I haven't used them because I don't really need them. I don't think I do. I get outdoors quite a bit. But that full spectrum light activates your brain, as does sunlight. So full spectrum light is the next best thing to sunlight. So like during the winter, for people that have, seasonal affective disorder, which a lot of us do to some degree, they're affected by darkness. Actually, a few people are affected by too much light, but they're a little minority, but I have met people that are. So get a full spectrum light, sit under the full spectrum light for 20 to 30 minutes a day. That really helps you to get that sunlight that you need, okay? So even if it's in the winter. The other thing, which again, some of you I hope are doing, is taking enough omega-3 fatty acids, like fish oil. And we need, that helps depression, it helps anxiety, it helps our energy level, it helps your heart, it helps everything. So if you're not taking it, I recommend that you go to a place that sells, good stuff, hopefully, like, Whole Foods or Natural Grocers or someplace. But you can always look up the group and see what they have in it and what their sources of what they put in it are. I've worked for years with O'Brien Pharmacy, so I get stuff there, and they have really excellent supplements. And also I add to that taking a good multivitamin that has magnesium and iodine and all the Bs and everything else that you need. If you're not feeding your body the vitamins and minerals that your body needs, and those essential fatty acids are very, very important, then that affects depression, it affects anxiety, it affects our fatigue, our activity levels. So you may think, not a big deal. It is a big deal. It's a very big deal. So I would say take those things. This is what Stephen Alardi's research was, okay? All right. Social support, like what, you're doing this, that you're talking to each other. Maybe I find myself, I'm sure you do too, I've met neighbors I didn't even know I had. Well, I did know some of them. We had a wonderful experience. We call it the mixed race house, but the father is African American, the mother is white, and the kids are mixed and so on. And we always wave to them, they wave to us, but they don't really interact. And so after COVID, we saw this couple at the farmer's market. with our masks. They had their masks. And we had this wonderful conversation with them. It was just amazing. And he asked, Leslie gave them masks. My spouse has made masks for people. And then we also had we had a sign, which I would have to say unhappily got taken from our yard, but we had a sign that said Black Lives Matter, no human is illegal, women's rights are human rights. You've seen those. Science is real, right? Love is love, and kindness is everything. And he wanted to know where we got our sign. He really liked our sign, and where did we get the sign, which I told him. So now we're having this conversation with our neighbor, and I think they have felt guarded, and we've tried to reach out to them, but they just we took cake over to them one time when we had someone from a party and went to our neighbors, and they just said no thank you. So we tried to reach out. It wasn't very successful, but now we seem to have this connection. So I think maybe some of you have had those kind of same things, that maybe neighbors you never even knew, or people walking down the street. Hi, how are you? How are you doing? Are you okay? We've seen kids and dogs and people that we've never seen before. So I think that those are opportunities, aren't they? Just in our daily life. So that social support is really important. The hardest one, which I saved till last, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about it, is working with negative thoughts or ruminative thinking. I don't suppose any of you have that issue, right? Where the little mouse gets in your brain over and over again, right? So let's talk a little bit about what do you do about that. So let me remind you, and I think I might have said this to you in I think actually I've been to see you twice, is that our brain is wired that it takes 0 seconds for a negative experience to register. So if something negative happens to you, whether it's words or actions or a smell or whatever it might be, 0 seconds. Guess how long it takes for a positive interaction to register in your brain? 15 seconds. So if I say to you, oh, well, that was certainly wonderful. I'm so appreciate you doing that. And you go, oh, thanks. That's about 2 seconds. I say to people, okay, do you take in compliments? And they say, oh, yeah. And so what do? You say, oh, no problem. No big deal. And I say, okay, here's the compliment. And then I say 1, 2, 3, 4. How long is 15 seconds, people? It's a long time, isn't it? So if you're not, if something positive is coming your way, whether it's a social interaction, whether it's a compliment, whether it's some good food you're eating, whether it's a sunny day, whether it's a lovely breeze, 15 seconds. 15 seconds. I want you to practice taking that in. Oh, take a breath. You know about the diaphragmatic breathing. Take a breath into the diaphragm. Oh, I'm taking in. We have a screened-in porch. We're sitting on our screened-in porch for breakfast, lunch if it's not too hot. Usually dinner is too hot, but we've been outdoors in our porch a lot. And it's just like every day, it's like, oh, this is such a wonderful day. And we see the trees, and, we had our backyard redone, and it's really lovely now. So it's like, it's joyful to just take in the trees, take in the breezes, take in the good things. 15 seconds. Can you do that? 15 seconds. So that is really, really, really important. And that really helps with this too. Okay. And if you do the diaphragmatic breathing, it's another way to interrupt the cycle. So you want to change your brain chemistry. You all know about this. But take a deep breath into your diaphragm. And then let it slowly go out. So take a breath in. So take a breath in. And I say count in, 2, 3, 4. And then out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. and in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And do you feel the difference that makes almost immediately? The neck and shoulders begin to relax. The energy moves down. And as you're doing that deep breathing and counting, guess what? If you're counting as you breathe to yourself, in 4, out 8, you're not thinking about this other stuff, right? And you're resetting your brain and you're actually changing your brain chemistry. Okay? So when we're worrying, when we're upset and the energy's boom going out the top of our heads, our cortisol is high, right? Okay, this gets those good endorphins, gets those good hormones getting going, and it begins to change your brain chemistry. So I don't care, some days I do a lot of deep breathing, okay? Because I just need to change the subject, okay? All right. Here's another one that I think will be really helpful. So you have this negative thought. So what I'd like for you to do is, I think I might have mentioned this before, there's a guy by the name of Masaru Emoto who wrote this book called Messages from the Water. Are any of you familiar with it? Okay, well, look it up. Messages from the Water. His name is Masaru Emoto, E-M-O-T-O. And he did a lot of research showing how thoughts, words, visual images, and essential oil, smells, changes water molecules. So your body's 70% water. The earth is 70% water. So if you want to change, if you say to yourself, oh my God, this is just a horrible world, oh, this thing, blah, 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 blah. Okay, what are you sending to all the cells and molecules of your body? Negativity, worry, stress. It's gonna, if you looked at your water molecules in your body under a microscope, they wouldn't look very nice. They would look kind of distorted, okay? So, but what if I say, you don't have to believe something to make it change your body and the cells and molecules of your body. So if I can say to myself, you know, today is a day, today is a good day, I want to feel good, I want to feel well. You can even say, if you want to say, I am well, I am happy if you want to. But you can just say, if you don't feel it, just say, I want to. Okay, then see what you're doing to your body, to your brain, and you're changing those water molecules in your body, right? 70%, right? So what you think, what you say, what you do creates a change in your brain and in your body and all the cells and molecules of your body. So we can change that almost immediately. Okay, when I do this with people in my office who come in maybe deeply depressed, very upset, in despair, we do this and they go, wow, I feel really good. Oh, start feeling hopeful. Okay, and so I think there's much to feel despairing about, but I must say that we can't do anything if we're stuck in despair. What is the sign over hell? Dante says, all who enter here, what is it? Something is like, you give up hope. Don't have hope. Be hopeless. That's hell. Hell is being hopeless. Okay? Heaven, or being with the oneness, is really embracing the possibility of joy, the possibility of peace. Okay? So if I'm like I said, even if I was a quadriplegic in my bed, what am I sending out? So let's go to the next part here. So thinking about how thoughts and things change realities. What if every time you have a negative thought, here's what I'd ask you to do. And somebody taught me this years ago. I was worrying about my daughter. So let's say I have a worry thought about my daughter. Oh my God, I don't anymore so much, but she's an adult and doing well. But as a teenager, she just worried the crap out of me, right? And you don't have any control. So I would, instead of worrying about her, here's what I learned to do. Send her images. I'm going to imagine her being safe, healthy, and protected and well. That's what I'm going to, every time I have a negative thought, let's say if you're thinking about someone you love, if you're thinking about people who are hurting, I want you to imagine that they are safe, that they are protected, that they are well, and they are getting what they need. Change the thought and image that you send to them, okay? Whoever, whether it's an individual person that you know or care about, or whether it's a group of people or individuals in groups that you're thinking about, send them. I try to make that my prayer every morning. As you know, I have my altar, I have my list of people, individuals, and also, I'm really praying for Ruth Bader Ginsburg to be okay. You've got to be okay, Ruth. Hang on. Be well. So I'm not going to go, oh my God, what if Ruth Bader Ginsburg dies? Well, but I'm going to imagine her healthy and well and protected, okay? Okay. So, I do it for my people that I love and know, but I'm also doing it for other people and others as well, right? So sending out, changing the worry thought to what you want to happen, okay? What do you want to see with that person or thing or group or whatever, okay? And send that out. Thoughts are things, it goes out. We know that. There's lots of research to show that prayers and healing images change people's health and lives. We know that. There's really a lot of research on that. Larry Dossey wrote a whole book about it. How prayer and healing thoughts or images sent to people affects them statistically significantly. Okay, so what you think and what you imagine, your prayer, your thought creates a reality. Okay, so that is power, isn't it? That is power. So the last thing I'll give you here is like you say, well, I can't do that. So I say, think of the negative thing. So you say, if I could imagine like this and this happening, I wonder what would it look like? What would it feel like? What would it be like? If I could, that's just giving your brain, here over here, I can't, negative. If I could imagine, right? I wonder what it would look like, what it would be like, okay? So this gives you some practical things that you can do to kind of work on to keep yourself centered, peaceful, happy, and helping spread that energy. If you never leave your room, okay? Okay? I do believe that we can change the world by just what we're thinking, what we're imagining, what we're creating here. We're sending out messages 24/7. What's your message? Gloom, doom, despair, or peace, love. It doesn't mean that we're not forgetting that there's pain. That's not the deal here. Suffering is the invitation, the challenge to think about how we're going to deal with it. It's not an invitation to get into a mud hole and just sit there, brooding in the mud hole, okay? So what we want to do is I want to stop with this. I'll end with this. It said, this is from our Buddhist guidance yesterday. Freedom doesn't mean an absence of all restrictions. It means possessing an unshakable conviction in the face of any obstacle. This is true freedom. So I think as we face these challenges and obstacles, personally, societally, what are we going to do? What can you do? And I would just put it out to you that you can do a lot. Okay. First, as I say, we say in Buddhism, if you don't like your environment, change yourself. So it's like, if I change my attitude, if I send this kind of energy out, then it's going to inform every action that I take. I will be open to hearing things. I will be open. I will be more empathic. Okay. So that's I think pretty much that's it. I don't know. I think that's it. I think that is our challenge, isn't it? That is our challenge.
Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jude,
Fabulous.
that was just absolutely fabulous.
Yeah.
Just extraordinary. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Everybody, huge applause for Jude, right? Yay, thank you.
So does that resonate with how you think and what you believe and how you can do what you know, that you really have power? I think it's really important for us to remember that.
It's always a great
Jude,
reminder. Yeah, absolutely.
I want to
as
ask
it-
something here if I can. Jude, could you give us your, I know you do professional counseling.
Yes.
Could you give us your phone number? Would that be okay to give us
Sure.
your phone number to
I'm
contact you?
No, I'm happy to give you that. I have a cell phone, and that's what you can reach me with. It's 913-509. I'm sorry, 816. That's right. I'm really okay. 816-509-9277.
Okay, hang on
All
a
right.
second. 816-509, and what's the rest of it?
9277.
Jude, we didn't talk about this, but I'm wondering if you would be willing to just stay a couple minutes afterward, and if anybody has questions,
Sure.
that
Absolutely.
we could have an open dialogue afterwards, since
Absolutely.
we're running a little bit late,
I know.
and I want to be cognizant of other people's schedules. So
Yeah.
if you want to stay and ask Jude a question or comment, then please do stay afterward.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we would like to quickly hear about any concerns or community concerns of any kind, what you have. And